I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, throws on the end zone. Caught ball, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in.
It's first and goal. That's picked off. That's picked off. And who else? Rondé Barber. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may ride to the Super Bowl with that one.
We don't even keep score. We just run that up and leave.
Third down, 18. Dropping Gannon, looking Gannon. Throws up the mid. Heads intercepted at the 40. Derek Brooks 30. Brooks to the 25. 20. Derek Brooks all the way. There it is. The dagger's in. We're going to win the Super Bowl.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
And there the cannons come. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Evan Wanish. Welcome back to the show. It's been a little while since we talked to you last. Tampa Bay Buccaneers mandatory minicamp has wrapped up as of last week. We're going to talk to you about some of the top storylines from that and more on another episode of the Cannon Fire Hotline, 305-224-1968. If you're watching live with us on YouTube and you would like to call in, the meeting ID is 895-6929-7818. Once again, 305-224-1968. Evan, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Finally got a little bit of football action, right? Some semblance of training camp, kind of. I know it's mini camp. There's no pads, stuff like that. There's still a long ways to go. Still got about, a month and a half or so towards training camp. So a Father's Day edition of the show. So happy Father's Day to all the dads out there listening. Yeah, and just excited, to be able to talk about actual football stuff. We're not just going to be making up stuff and trying to come up with stuff on the fly, because there's actual news that has happened, things that have happened that we can finally talk about. So excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day. We actually got to, me and some buddies from work got to hang out with the minor league team for the Yankees down here in Tampa, the Tampa Tarpons today. Did some batting practice at old George M. Steinbrenner Field. Had a lot of fun with that.
Did you hit a ball? Did the ball get through the infield, or
I had a couple dingers. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I missed a lot more than I hit, but the ones that I did hit were respectable. So I'll hang my cap on that. But pleasure to see everyone hanging out in the live chat with us here. Our buddy Mr. Bucs Nation, the moderator, the newest hire over at Pewter Report checking in, Evan Blythe, Richard T, who gave us a call last week, also checking in, Lee Ayers. Haven't seen you in the live chat in a minute, but a pleasure to see you on the stream. Now, if you're watching visually as well, we have a couple of treats for you. The first of those is that I got a new microphone. If you're listening back on the audio replay or the audio version of the show, there are some things that I have to figure out. For some reason, Evan, every time you talk, you come through not only the USB pot, which is where I have you turned up, but you come through my microphone as well, which creates this weird double voice effect.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I'm gonna have to figure that out. But it comes with the territory, new technology, new microphone, new roadcaster. So we're trying to make this show as good as we can be, and this is just another step in doing so. But not only that. Before we dive into the quarterback competition talk here, Evan, people over here on YouTube have seen that you're kind of stepping up a little bit, and you've got your own realm of content now over on the Mr. Bucs Nation YouTube channel. You are filling in the void over there. Tell the folks about that.
Yeah, trying. Trying to. It's difficult to fill in that void exactly, but obviously, as many of you know, James accepted a job at Pewter Report, which is very, very cool. But with that, he had to sort of scale back. He didn't completely go away from this YouTube channel, but he had to scale back his YouTube channel a little bit. So I've been helping out there with doing as much as I can, as well as I can. It just my main goal is I don't want the channel to nosedive because James is, he's built it up to what it is now, and it's one of the best Bucs YouTube channels on the entire app. And I'm just trying to do right by that. So yeah, if you want to check me out somewhere else, sort of in a shorter, less in depth role, I guess you could say. Yeah, go check out the stuff there. But also, if you want the in-depth stuff, the call-in shows, everything like that, you gotta stick right here. So be sure to check out the Campfire podcast and everything we got here, and vice versa. So I mean, we're gonna be doing basically, it's another way to promote the podcast too, which always helps. We know James's audience has always been great to us, but it'd be nice to even expand that even more. So
yeah, all about making this Red and Pewter community bigger and better year after year. So let's get into the talk of the town this week, and that is the quarterback battle for another week in a row. We are talking about Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. Now, this week in a much more positive light, given that we don't have a certain video floating around from the depths of training camp or mini camp there. But, we hear more and more about Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask both getting more adjusted to this Dave Canales offense. They're getting more of those reps that count. And while they're not going to be back in the building until July for training camp, we did get a much better idea of their, what's the word I'm looking for? Their comfortability level in this offense after this week.
Yeah.
Obviously still a lot yet to be determined, and preseason games and training camp are going to help us do that. But Evan, if I had to ask you right here, right now, who you think is going to be the week 1 starter for the Bucs at QB, is it Baker Mayfield or is it Kyle Trask?
Yeah, he's starting off with the hard hitter. You hit a few balls today, and you're like, you know what? We're gonna start off with the home run guy.
Yeah, I bet you didn't see that one coming.
As we sit here today, June 18th, obviously a lot can change between now and week 1, like a lot. But just assuming everything goes normal, assuming there's nothing out of the ordinary, nothing unexpected, you can't predict an injury to anybody or any time, assuming all bygones, everything's even, right? I think it's going to be Baker Mayfield. I have trouble seeing Todd Bowles in a year where he may be on the hot seat. I have trouble seeing him hitching his wagon to a guy that doesn't even have a single career start in a year like this. If they struggle, if Baker Mayfield starts the season and they struggle, it would not surprise me if Kyle Trask eventually gets put in, because you got to see what you have. But you asked me about week 1. I have to imagine the starting quarterback for week 1 for this team is going to be Baker Mayfield, barring Kyle Trask is looking tremendous and Baker Mayfield maybe not, barring an injury. I just, barring something unexpected, I have to think that right now Baker Mayfield's the leader in the clubhouse, and I think it's going to stay that way throughout training camp and the preseason.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I was not a Baker Mayfield believer by any stretch of the imagination when they first brought him to Tampa. You know my opinion. I wish they would have gone with Gardner Minshew. I think we could have marketed Minshew Mania the same way we're marketing Baker Mayfield right now and had just as much fun with it. But, one of the things that I can't appreciate since Bake has come to town is kind of seeing him out and about in the community a little more. We've seen him at multiple Lightning games. We saw him at the Rays game signing autographs for a bunch of fans, taking pictures with people and kissing babies, taking pictures with old ladies. You love to see it. It's starting quarterback behavior. And Kyle has done all that and then some. But, as time goes by, I hate to say he's winning me over, but he kind of is winning me over.
He's definitely winning the dog over. So.
Yeah. Yeah,
always excited about Baker Mayfield.
The puppy here making her official debut on the Cannon Fire podcast. This is Scout, the newest member of my family here. Happy to have her. She's happy to be here, but she is a little restless climbing up my shoulder right now. So we'll see how I can manage that for the rest of the pod here. But going back to Baker, he is winning me over. He really is. I don't know what it is. I'm ready to embrace it. I'm ready to get baked week 1. If we're gonna do this, I want to see just how far we're ready to go, and I would like to see Baker resurrect his career in Tampa. A simplified offense, Dave Canales making things easier for both of his quarterbacks, regardless of who's going to be playing. If we can see some kind of improvement on the Baker that we saw in LA, I think the Bucs can put a competent offense on the field. And with this defense only looking to get better after last season, I know that they are putting a lot of trust in young talent, but they have the potential to be one of the best defenses in the NFC South. And that goes a long way because that carried this team last year. If you put together a competent offense, kind of like what we said on the last podcast, it's hard to not believe that this offense, or at least this Bucs team, could be at least a little bit better, especially once they reach that point in the season where hopefully things are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and the tough thing about it is I think it obviously depends on Baker. It depends on his performance, but it also depends on the offensive scheme. And that's one thing I've sort of been trying to preach a little bit this offseason is it's so difficult to project those things because yes, you can look at Seattle's offense and you can look at what Dave Canales, his influence in Seattle's offense and what you can maybe take bits and pieces from that. But that's not going to be the scheme. Like, it's not going to be a carbon copy of Seattle's offense. So you don't know what the offensive scheme is going to be. You don't know if it's going to be successful. Like, you have no idea if it's going to be successful or not in the NFL. He's a first-year offensive coordinator in the NFL. There's risk here. But if it is successful, I think you could be looking at a competent offense. And you know what? Sometimes, Baker Mayfield's not Tom Brady, right? Baker Mayfield, honestly, probably isn't even on the level that Jameis Winston was in 2019. Like, he's like talent-wise, probably not even on that level. But I think you can mask that, a little bit of that, with a better offensive scheme. And I think that's what they're going to be shooting for, this fall.
We got our first caller here on the show. Who do we have calling in? Hello.
Hello.
Hey, what's up? You're on the Can of Fire podcast.
What's up, guys? How you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good,
What's your
how are
name? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Bradenton.
What's on your mind this week?
So about the whole Baker Mayfield thing. So, yeah, I would imagine that he is going to win the starter because, again, the whole Todd Bowles being possibly on the hot seat, but that's the one thing, because me personally, now a lot of people are going to really, when I say this, people are going to be like, what the heck is he talking about? But I personally believe, if I was the owner of the Bucs, I would just give the starting job to Trask because when people say, he doesn't have experience, well, yeah, you got to give him experience. Otherwise, how are we going to develop him? You can't just throw out the whole, he sat behind Tom Brady. That doesn't matter. We've got to give him experience. Otherwise, how are we going to develop him? Now, again, yeah, Todd Bowles could be on the hot seat, but that really just makes me why did BA have to step down, man? He could have really, really helped Trask, and it's just not a good situation for Trask. That's just my opinion.
No, I don't think it's a favorable situation. I mean, especially when you're a former second-round pick. Yes, you had to sit behind Tom Brady for 2 seasons, but when you're potentially looking at getting your first NFL action in your third year, it's definitely not favorable. And I mean, you bring up a good point. We talk about the lack of experience that Trask has, but he's not going to get much better riding the bench, right? So if you're hoping that he can get better, then you kind of have to play him. If he struggles, he struggles. But if he does well, then, hey, maybe you don't need to go out and spend resources on a draft pick, for a quarterback.
Wait, am I still on?
Yep, go ahead. You're still here.
Oh, okay, sorry. Another thing is even if we give him 1 year, he's going to be a basic rookie quarterback where he's going to make mistakes and he's going to have his struggles. Even if he would give him a year, we can't just 1 year and out. We still got to continue to develop him. That's just what I think. You guys have a good day.
All right, thanks for the call, man.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, buddy. Yeah, an interesting point there, and one that you don't hear too often. This guy says, I didn't catch his name, but this guy says that, hey, just throw Baker in there. Or I'm sorry, just throw Kyle in there. Trial by fire. If you're going to find out what this guy has, then now...
It's the only way you're going to find out.
Yeah, at this rate, And the thing about Kyle Trask, too, which is crazy, is that this is his first fair shot at a starting job in the NFL. And in a lot of ways, it still feels like an uphill battle for the guy. You know, we kind of talked about how if he was able to win this job from Baker Mayfield, like that would exceed everyone's expectations that they already have set for him. Because I don't think there were very many people who were looking at Kyle Trask when they signed Baker Mayfield and had legitimate hopes and expectations that he was going to compete in this job. And I don't know if that says more about what the average fan thinks of Kyle Trask or if it says more about what Kyle Trask has given the average fan to think about up until this point. Probably the latter there. You know, but you even heard rumblings from different media outlets about how the Bucs may not be the highest on second round draft pick Kyle Trask. Like, this is a guy that, again, you did spend the draft revenue on, and a lot of fans are getting mad watching him sit there on the bench for potentially the third year in a row. But I mean, this is as fair of a shake as he was going to get. And again, we still have yet to reach training camp. We still have yet to reach the preseason, but it already feels like he's falling behind in this quarterback battle here.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and here's when you talk about, okay, you know, the Bucs aren't giving him experiences and that, you know, they sort of given up on him. The one thing that they have that we don't is they're seeing him every day on their practice field. They're seeing him every day in that building. If they don't like what they see, that's something that we don't know. If he's not developing in practice the way that they believe, like if they don't think he's game ready, like, do you really want to go out there and embarrass yourselves? Like, if you don't think he's game ready, to me, I'm always of the mindset, it don't matter where you're picked. You know, to me, it doesn't matter if you're the first overall pick, if you're the last pick of the draft. It doesn't matter. You have to earn your spot right now. As a rookie, you know, you get leeway, but like, and if Kyle Trask was a rookie right now, I think we'd be talking about a different situation. I think there'd be a lot more people that was like, yeah, like Trask has this job, and there'd be a lot more believers in Kyle Trask, but he's entering his third year. And I think the tough thing about it is when you sign Baker Mayfield, it's not like they signed, you know, Lamar Jackson or even a Jimmy Garoppolo where you're like, oh, like that guy's a starter. Like, there is no competition. No, there's a competition here. Like, Baker Mayfield is not like, oh, it's a lock for a starting job. But the more you hear about it, the more it's like, yeah, it's probably going to be Baker Mayfield. And if that's the case, if Baker Mayfield's a week one starter, and let's say Kyle Trask doesn't get in at all, well, then, you know, you might as well look at either commit to Baker Mayfield as your guy, depending on what he does, or look elsewhere, because you're not going to start Kyle Trask for his first year as a starter in his fourth year in the league. That's not going to happen. So this is make or break for Kyle Trask. I don't mean to pat myself on the back here. I don't want to, because look, like, that's not what's best for the organization. Right? What's best for the the only way that would be like Trask not being the starter that would be best for the organization is if Mayfield is playing really well. That's what's best for the organization if Trask isn't the starter. But long term, the best thing's like, yeah, Trask beats out Mayfield and Trask is your guy for the next 8-9 years. You know, like, that's the best thing for the organization. However, I did say after they drafted Kyle Trask, I did make the claim that Kyle Trask was never going to start a game, regular season game in a Buccaneers uniform. So it's kind of looking okay right now. Like, it's looking decent. Is there a chance he gets in at some point this year if Mayfield struggles? Which, look, like, you can be a Baker Mayfield believer if you want. The recent evidence has shown that, like, there will be struggles at times. Like, he was replaced in Carolina. LA, it was really up and down, but they didn't have anybody else to really replace him with. So the history shows that there may be a door cracked open for Kyle Trask there. But that take of mine is not looking too bad right now.
I think that's going to be the best hope for Kyle Trask this coming season if he does want to get in.
Here's a question. Here's a question I want to ask. What point does, let's say, I don't know, in your mind, let's say it's week 6, week 7, how many wins do the Buccaneers have to have or how many losses, I should say, for the Bucs to be like, I got to put Trask in?
4.
Like, is it, but by week 6, week 7, or do they have 1 win? Do they have 2 wins? Like, well, what's the, what's the difference between 1-6 or 2-5? Like, is there that big of a difference between those? Like, that's what I don't know.
Yeah, obviously, you're going to have to look at how they lost those games. Like, if Baker went out and threw 5 picks and the other defense was having a field day, then yeah, obviously it's going to be something we're going to have to consider sooner than later. But, if he's not playing terrible and the Bucs defense has just let us down, let's say the secondary gets torched early on in the season, and by week 6, the Bucs are looking at a 3-3 record, I would say if Baker hasn't absolutely stuck the place up, then you probably go ahead and stick with him. But if that, again, just like you said, if they're rocking a 2-5, 1-6 record by week 7, and you can clearly look at the offense as a big reason as to why this team isn't working. We've seen it happen before. 2018, we saw Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick. I know Fitzmagic came out hot. First 2 weeks of the year. Bucs were looking great. They shut down the Saints on the road. They beat the defending Super Bowl champion Eagles. Kind of sputtered out Monday Night Football against the Steelers, and then Fitzmagic turned his ugly head, and we obviously saw Jameis come back into the fray, and then they couldn't make up their mind for the rest of the year after that. So that's obviously a situation that we have to, I guess, just anticipate, because we have seen some bad quarterback play before.
Well, here's the thing, real quick before we get to this caller. I'm of the opinion that there is no flip-flopping to me. I'm of the opinion that if you start Baker Mayfield week 1 and by week 8 you want to make a change, okay, Kyle Trask should be your guy for the rest of the season. There is no going back to Baker Mayfield, going back to Kyle Trask. There is no that's dumb.
I agree with you. It is dumb. And it's counterproductive to what they're trying to do with the quarterback position. If you want to figure out which one of these guys is going to be your next potential future quarterback, which is the situation the Bucs are in right now. Luckily, they do have choices, but you're going to have to commit to one of these guys. And kind of like Ryan Fitzpatrick, where you knew his days were numbered in Tampa. Jameis Winston was already on a short leash in 2018, given that the seasons he had produced before. So I think the Bucs are going to want to be a little bit more patient. And while I do agree musical QBs is dumb, I don't know, man. I think if Kyle Trask comes in at week 6, week 7 of the season's probably already a wash at that point. And I would like to think we would probably see Baker Mayfield again before the end of that regular season. But we have another caller here from the 626. What's your name? Where are you calling in from?
What's up, guys? This is Richard T.
Hey, Richard T. on the West Coast.
Yes, sir. Calling from San Gabriel, California. A couple things on my mind, but I want to discuss Evan's question. He's asking how long is that leash, right? That's kind of hard to say, because what if the Bucs are like 5-1, but they're losing games, 24-26, 27-29, 28-30. Is that really going to be on the quarterback? Not that I see us scoring 25, 26, 27 points a game, with this new offense. There's going to be a lot of, I'm pretty sure that we're going to take a lot of hits along the way as everyone's learning this new offense. But I think it's just hard to gauge right now to find out, what that leash is, because we have to, really consider how are they losing? Is the defense giving up too many points? Is special teams not making their kicks? Special teams not covering their punts or kickoff coverages? But definitely, if it is the offense that's losing games for us, Mayfield's getting 2 picks a game, losing fumbles, we're only scoring 10, 11, 12 points a game. I mean, probably by October, we'll see Trask behind center.
Yeah, here's the interesting thing to me. So let's say Baker Mayfield doesn't do awful, but let's also say he doesn't light the world on fire. And by week 8, the Bucs are 2-5. does a Todd Bowles, who would be on the hot seat by that point, like he'd be firmly on the hot seat. He can't afford a 3-4 win season, or else he's going to get fired. And even like Jason Light, who I think would survive, I'm not 100% certain would survive. So let's say Baker Mayfield is average, right? Let's say it's average, but like the offensive line is not all there. Tristan Wirfs has moved to the left side, has been okay. Luke Gedicke's still learning. The new offensive system is, still working out the kinks. Baker Mayfield, but the quarterback play is average, but you're still 2-5. To me, that's when you may have to make that switch, regardless of like, hey, Baker hasn't been bad, but like you need a spark. And I think that's maybe what could prompt a QB change. And again, hope this doesn't happen. I'm hoping that the Buccaneers are 5-2, but by week 8. And then you don't need to have this conversation at all. But I do think heading into the season, we need to have that conversation of like, just like you said, how long is that leash? How long does Baker Mayfield have before a coaching staff, which is going to have a lot of pressure on it, how long does it have before they say we got to go to the other guy? And I think that's one of the interesting storylines for this year.
I will agree with you 100%. If that's the case, if that was a situation, if Baker's just playing mediocre in a league that caters to the quarterbacks now, where average quarterbacks can look good quarterbacks can look great, and great quarterbacks can look legendary. I think you're right. We would have to at least consider that change to give that spark so that the offense can do what they need. Because if he's not being that good of what did Canales call it, like a point guard?
Yeah,
right?
basically, like the point guard, the playmaker, like the distributor, If
he's not seeing that field, he's not distributing the ball where it needs to go. And not just distributing the ball where it needs to go, but distributing the ball, getting the play done at the time that we need that play. So many times, especially during the Jameson era, and last season, when it was 3rd and 2, we couldn't convert. 4th and 1, we couldn't convert. 2nd and goal, couldn't get it. Time and time again, that we just seen that happen. So if that's something that continues, then I will be 100% behind you on considering that change for the quarterback.
Another thing that kind of begs the question of how short that leash is going to be for Baker Mayfield is taking into consideration that, he does not only have playoff experience, but he has starter experience as well. So coming into this quarterback battle, he's already a QB that we have a much better idea of what to expect from him, right? So the question is, just how average does he have to be, to get benched? Like he doesn't have to go out there and light the world on fire, just like Evan said. But if he is pedestrian,
but that's what I'm saying though. If he's pedestrian and you're not winning games, you may have to do something.
Right, but then you throw in Kyle Trask, and the expectations are a little bit different, because I feel like if Kyle Trask is pedestrian the same way that Baker Mayfield is pedestrian in this hypothetical scenario, then some people are going to give Kyle, or they're going to be faster to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering he is going to have, those first-time starter jitters. Like he's not as well adjusted to being a starter in the NFL as Baker is. So does that mean that, the leash for mediocrity is a little bit longer for a guy like Kyle Trask? Because, I mean, once you put him in this season, like I said, I feel like if Baker is playing so bad to where we have to put Trask in, this season is already a wash anyway. So once Trask goes in...
At 2-5, it's a wash. Even if Baker's average.
So once Trask goes in, you trust him for the rest of the year. If he is just as pedestrian as Kyle Trask, does that make you feel any better about where he is?
You have to see what you have in him. Like you gotta just like the last caller, you gotta find out eventually. So if you're 2-5, the pressure on these later games after the 2-5 start, there's not much pressure. It's like hey man, like if you lose, whatever, it's a crap season, like it's not like, oh, they need to win this game. Like the pressure, and I think you need to see what you have in him. What if, okay, you're talking about if he's mediocre, what if he shows upside? What if he's like, Trask is like, okay, they're still losing, but like Trask has played decent, like then you have that conversation of maybe you don't need to spend your top 10, top 15 pick on a quarterback. Instead, you can get something to help you out in another area that you need better. So that's why I think, yeah, I mean, you make a good point. Like the leash for mediocrity, like if Trask is mediocre, that's going to be met with a different reception than Mayfield, sure. But I also think there's more of a leeway because Trask is basically, like you said earlier, he's basically a rookie this year. Like this is his first year, and I think it just context matters in that scenario.
Hey, speaking of context, our buddy Matt Diaz brings up a good point in the chat here. He says, to me, if they were 2-5 by week 7, that also probably means his defense isn't playing too well. And if you're 2-5 at that point, there's probably bigger problems on this Bucs team than just the level of quarterback play. But Richard T., any closing thoughts before we let you go, my friend?
Hey, yeah, okay. So look, if Trask, to go on your point, what's that leash for Trask? Considering he's like first year starter, I would have to imagine the team is going to say, you're the quarterback, you're expected to win, you're expected to deliver, no excuses. And as fans, guess what? I think that's the same boat. Like, no excuses, dude. Now, yeah, we all want, to give him that little leeway because there is going to be a learning curve. There really is. But truth of the matter is that in this day and age in quarterback, this day and age in football, you don't deliver, you're going to be on the hot seat. So that's it. Hey, I have a question for you guys. There's one thing I want to ask you guys, and it's not quarterback, but quarterback of the defense. I want to bring up 45. It's good that he was at minicamp this week, and I'm a Devin White fan. I've loved him since he came in, but the last couple of years, he's definitely been bringing up a lot of question marks. Would you say at this point of his career, has he shown more good than bad, or more mediocrity than good in his career thus far? Also got to consider, like, the first 2 years he played, we were playing 16 games. He missed 4 games as his rookie year. Now, the last 2 years, 17 games now, and it's been a little rocky for him. What do you guys think about his career thus far, as far as what he's shown more?
Awesome. We'll dive into it. Great call. Thanks for calling in, Rich. We'll talk to you later, bud.
All right, you guys take care. Peace.
See you.
Thanks, Rich. Yeah, it's an interesting question. And actually, that's a good way to close the quarterback talk because one of our subjects tonight was Devin White. So obviously Devin White showed up from mini camp. It was mandatory. So that was the big storyline. Was he going to show up or not? First time he's appearing since his trade request. So to answer Richard's question, and I think that's why we're in this situation. I think it's a mixed bag. And I think that's why there is no definite solution. There is some Bucs fans that believe he should be paid. There's some Bucs fans that believe the Bucs are doing him wrong, that they should have got this done right before this trade request even happened. And then there's others that are like, show me. Right? Like, you got to show me. And then there's others that are completely out. Like, it is 3 different ones from 3 different spectrums. And it is there is no in between. So that's the issue with Devin White's play. Now, it's interesting that he brought up the schedule. I find that interesting because it's wear and tear on your body, and playing a position like linebacker is going to be, you're going to be taking a lot more hits in an extra game. And maybe you look at him like, hey, I'm playing an extra game. Maybe I should be getting some more money. So, but to answer the question, I don't, you can't judge it. He's too inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting on a week-to-week basis. However, what you got in the 2022 season was, if you're just asking me, and I can give you this answer, I guess, based on last season, you got mostly bad. Like last season was mostly bad. In past seasons, you'd be like, oh, it was a good Devin White game. Then the next week, you're like, This past season, it was pretty bad most of the time. There were flashes. Obviously, Dallas week 1 did really well. I think the first New Orleans game, he played okay. But then like that Ravens game was a joke. Like that was an embarrassment. Especially the way the Ravens just ran all over them in the second half there to take that game. Like, you're one of the leaders on the defense. Like, you got to step up and put an end to that. I just that's why he's a polarizing figure in the Bucs realm right now. So that's why it's also a tough decision for the Bucs on whether to sign him or not. It would be easy if he was playing consistently good or consistently bad. It'd be a pretty easy decision, but he just is an enigma that, just you don't know what you're getting. You just don't.
I think a lot of fans who have spoken out against Devin White or have supported the case of not paying him and not having him in Tampa, a lot of those people seem to take issue with most of his off-the-field antics, whether it is, talking about how much he loves the Eagles on social media or posting something passive-aggressive about the fan base, playing football, being where you want to be, all of that stuff. A lot of people don't care for that extra stuff. And listen, I'm not against any player speaking their mind about whatever it may be, because that's the state of the NFL these days. Those are the players that play in the league, and those guys have a right to express their opinion whenever they want, whether you agree with it or not. But as far as addressing Richard's question of whether he has shown more good or bad, I would say, in the grand scheme of things, Devin White has shown more good than bad, because the Bucs are giving his contract talk. They're giving it attention, and they are giving it the time of day, because if he goes out there and he plays his ass off this year, I do think the Bucs are going to make a push to pay him. And, an interesting question here in the chat from our buddy Dub says, question is, has he been better than Quan Alexander was by this point? I think he has been head and shoulders better than Quan Alexander was, because when it was time to potentially pay Quan Alexander, the Bucs did not even think twice about it before they let him go ahead and sign elsewhere. Devin White, this is a trivial year for him, because I think the Bucs are ready to hitch their wagon to a player like Devin White, especially with Levante David now being the oldest guy on your defense and potentially moving on after this season. The Bucs want this to work out more than anyone else. I don't know about Devin White, but in my opinion, I think he has shown more good than bad. Has it been worth a $100 million contract? No, but he still has a whole season to go out there and prove his worth to a lot of teams who still see that value in him. And I think the Bucs are one of those teams that still see a lot of value in him.
Yeah, but I also think like the Bucs are ready. Like I just think Jason Light has shown that he's willing to stick to his guns a lot of the time, like and not give in. Like,
yeah, he's not scared to move on from guys.
Yeah, like and that's that's great. Like, that's what every GM should do. Like, you don't give in just because he was drafted 5th overall and he makes splashy plays and stuff. If you don't think he's worth the money he's asking for, tell him, hey man, go find it. Hey, go to the open market and go find somebody that's going to pay you $100 million or $90 million, whatever it may be. Go find it. If you can't, call us. If you can't, you can take our offer. But if you think so highly of yourself, go ahead. Like, and Jason Light has done it a few times. Like, he has done that. Like, Jamel Dean technically hit the open market. I believe Carlton Davis hit the open market. There's a lot of guys. Jason Pierre-Paul has hit the open market a few times. Ndamukong Suh hit the open market. Leonard Fournette is a great example. Leonard Fournette hit the open market, and he returned to the Buccaneers eventually. So, I think it's tough, and you're kind of playing hardball with a player like Devin White, but you just hope it doesn't drag into the season, right? Let's say a week 7 game and Devin White doesn't play well, and something happens in the locker room where he refuses to speak to reporters, or he says something that's like a little eyebrow raising. That's what you don't want. That's what you don't want. Which
has happened before. Again, already enough cause for concern that we have had issues like this happen before. So it's already something that people are going to have their guard up, and they're probably going to take a little more seriously this year of all years as well.
Yeah, and also like Richard commented in the chat that he didn't play well in 2022, but it wasn't bad enough to be benched. Here's my thing. The Bucs don't have anybody behind him. Like, behind Lavonte David and Devin White, there's nobody. Like, it's KJ Britt. Like, KJ Britt can't be one of your starting middle linebackers, especially when the Buccaneers last season were with Tom Brady still trying to win. Like, they were trying to win a Super Bowl. You can't have KJ Britt as your middle linebacker when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. Like, if everybody's healthy, you can't have that. So, all due respect to KJ Britt, but you can't have that if you're trying to win. So, was it bad enough to be benched? I don't know. We'll never know, but it may have been just because they didn't have anybody else. Like, there wasn't nobody else. Now they have drafted Servassier Dennis out of Pittsburgh, a linebacker who flashed a little bit in minicamp. Does he push? Does he push a guy like Devin White? Maybe.
Brought up in the live chat. He's long gone, if I'm not mistaken. He signed with another squad. I think he's in Jacksonville or
something like that, or Tennessee, something. Anyway, he's not there anymore. So, but he was making a push. It just towards the end of the preseason, he sort of went a little quiet. But
I will say this about Devin White's 2023 season. Obviously his play on the field is going to be what determines his future in Tampa Bay, but I think his attitude throughout the year is gonna be telling, and it's going to. This
will go one of two ways.
I agree. The fans. I got to tell you, if at any point this season, Devin White chooses to close up, or he chooses to maybe handle something not seen in the best light to the average Bucs fan. Whether it is ignoring a Jenna Lane question, whether it is shutting down after a game in the locker room and not talking to the press, or it's making smart aleck comments on social media, stuff like that is going to be even more polarizing this year to the average person, because he's going to have a microscope on him. And I think if he handles this with grace and, he just goes out there and he does his job, which at the end of the day, it's all he should want to do if he wants to be paid. That's going to go a long way. But if he resorts to his previous behavior, then I can't imagine it's going to go very well for him. I think it could be a long year. And I say that because he's going to get hit with a lot of tough questions this year. He just is. He has set himself up. I know that reports have come out that he is putting the trade request behind him. He was at mandatory minicamp while he didn't practice. It's a toss-up. This is my next question. It's a toss-up of people saying, oh, it's a hold-in. Oh, he's just not ready to go physically. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. He was there. He did show up for his teammates, which I can't appreciate. And he has been cordial in his time back. But I think the way that he handles things off of the field is going to say a lot about him this year. And people are going to be paying extra close attention to stuff like that. But Evan, is this a hold-in, or do people just kind of like to make a mountain out of a molehill here?
I don't think it's a hold-in. Now, I think we'll get our answer on that come training camp, because now there's no excuse. Like, you've shown up for minicamp, and if you're going to show up for minicamp, like, the expectation has to be, like, you're showing up for training camp. So, the first few days of training camp, if he doesn't practice, then you might be like, all right, like, what's going on? And then it gets ugly, because if he's just refusing to practice, is he going to refuse to play? Like, and then it's like a distraction where, like, you're like, this can't, like, we can't have this. Like,
and that's the last thing anyone in that locker room wants, Devin White included, is for this to become a distraction come the regular season. That's the last thing this defense is going to need.
Are we sure Devin White? I think he'd be okay with it. He's doing it to himself. It's his own fault. Like,
Richard T with a great quote in the chat. I forgot to bring this up when I was talking earlier, but kind of follows what I was talking about. Lavonte David even said that Devin White's emotions got the best of him last year. And, it It is what it is. That it's
Wow.
like he hasn't learned from Brady and Evans when it comes to contracts. Now, obviously,
and if that dude that's sitting right next to you, right there on that newspaper, if he was still around, this wouldn't be flying right now. So I can tell you that right now. This would not be flying.
I want to agree. Especially now we hear more and more about Mike Evans potentially working on a contract extension with Tampa Bay to more than likely make him a Buccaneer for his entire career, which I personally cannot wait for. But as we await the details on what that new deal is going to look like, I can't imagine Mike Evans is about to be breaking the wide receiver market in the NFL, and I think it is going to be a team-friendly deal, which again shows you where his priorities might be compared to some of his teammates also looking for.
And you know what? Like, okay, players go out and get your money. Like Devin White, go get your money, man. Like that's fine. Okay, there's nothing wrong with asking for a crap ton of money. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But you better make sure your play dictates that. Like Mike Evans' play dictates $20 plus million a year, and that's what he's going to get. Now, will that break the wide receiver market? No, because the wide receiver market's way up right now. But like he's going to get paid. Like he's earned it. Like he has earned it. Devin White has not earned that contract. So when you haven't earned the contract you're seeking, don't go pout and request a trade. That doesn't show. That shows like immaturity. Like that just, to me, there was such better ways that he could have handled this. He could have stayed out of the headlines completely, put his head down and just worked and said, you know what? Use it as motivation. Be like, you know what? This organization doesn't believe in me right now to give me $100 million. I'm going to make them believe. And then they're going to have to pay me more than $100 million because I'm going to prove that I'm worth more than that. And instead he took the route of, asking out, basically taking his ball and going home. Like, and it's creating a whole drama that was just so unnecessary. Like it's not necessary. So and also, like, I see like something in the chat, like me saying like Brady wouldn't let this stuff fly. Like that's not a shot at Todd Bowles or Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield, like anybody on that Bucs roster. I'm just saying there's a difference when 12's in the building. There's a complete difference. And
I mean, all the guys who decided to stick around solely because of Tom Brady, like Leonard Fournette, obviously being lumped into that conversation. Julio Jones was just a 1-year rental, but that's a guy who took less money to come here and play. That's the mentality when you have a guy like Brady in the building. Just like you said, no slight against Todd Bowles or anyone else in that organization. It's just a different team, and it's a different mentality when you're building a team around the greatest quarterback of all time versus not having him around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a critical year for Devin White. But as we sort of wrap it up, talk about Mike Evans. Yeah, obviously he was in the news this week about possibly working on an extension. Now, as we need to preface this, there is no extension right now. There is no terms because there is no contract extension. However, I'd say, and this has been rumored all offseason. Like, this isn't something that just popped out of the blue. It's just Rick Stroud, sort of brought it back up to surface here in a Tampa Bay Times article. He also said that both sides are looking to get something done this summer. So, perhaps before training camp, maybe before the season. I would think training camp, they would like to have it done before training camp, but who knows? But regardless, it sounds like, I'd say, this is just me, a 95% chance. Like, Mike Evans and the Bucs are going to agree to some sort of contract extension. He was supposed to be a free agent after this upcoming season, so I don't think that's going to be happening. I think he's gonna apparently, I think at one of the foundation things he had said like he wants to play for like 3 or 4 more seasons, so you could see a contract maybe line up with those wishes. Maybe it's like a 2 or 3 year deal tacked onto this one, so really it'd be 3 more years or 4 more years. So I don't think you're going to see Mike Evans wearing another team's uniform anytime soon, because I expect him to be in Tampa Bay long term, sooner rather than later.
It's no secret the cap hell the Bucs have had to dig themselves out of. So when we talk about a Mike Evans extension this offseason of all seasons, where they already had to restructure a couple of guys to sign the draft class, is this going to be one of those weird contracts with a bunch of extra void years tacked onto the end of it? Or do you think they're just going to give him a straight up extension And as far as compensation goes, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it because he is about to go into the final year of his current deal.
Yeah, I would personally like them to avoid the 40 years thing, because that creates dead money. And
I agree.
look,
You've already kicked the can down the road long enough.
Yeah.
This is the year that you eat it.
Yeah, and like you've already eaten it. Like you don't need to eat it again. Like who knows where you're going to be in 3 or 4 years? Like if you're in a championship window, sure, but like there's no guarantee of that. So I would like to avoid that. And that's also the contract extension now would actually give them more cap space now.
$5 super chat,
$5 super chat. Appreciate you,
Mikey.
Can we see Wirfs or Winfield getting extended mid-season like we did with Vita Vea? I could see it. I think Wirfs is going to be more of an off-season thing just because he has the 5th-year option, whereas Antoine Winfield is scheduled to be a free agent after this season. I could see it.
I also think some added context there as well, comparing Winfield's deal to Tristan Wirfs' deal. Tristan Wirfs is going to set the tone for that left tackle market if he's getting paid like the best left tackle in the NFL.
If he's playing like it, if he's as good a left tackle as he's a right tackle,
yeah, he's going to earn every dollar of that contract, which means the Bucs are going to have to shell out much more money up front than I think they're going to have to do with Antoine Winfield Jr. I think Winfield Jr. has played great. I think he's going to earn every dollar of that deal he's going to get. I just don't necessarily.
Both of those guys will be back.
Yeah, they'll both be back. I just don't necessarily think Winfield Jr. is on pace to reset his respective position market the way Tristan Wirfs is about to do. But excited to see both of those guys get paid and remain Bucs for the long haul. Richard T with a good question here regarding Mike Evans. Can the Bucs retire numbers even while Mike Evans is still playing? I'm sure they could, but I can't imagine why they would.
Yeah, and I've never seen that before, ever.
Yeah, I mean, guys like LeBron James.
It will be. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, there are some guys in the NBA, like LeBron James. Is he not the last NBA player wearing number 6 as of right now? Because they had retired.
Yeah, it was like grandfathered in.
Yeah, so I mean, if the Bucs decide to do it, maybe that's how we see it play out. But if they're going to retire any numbers for anyone on this team right now, it's going to be after their career is over.
Nobody's going to be wearing a 13 in a Bucs uniform again.
That's the thing too, is that we don't know yet if it's going to be one of those unofficial, unspoken retirements, or if it's going to be a big ceremonious made
technically Rondé Barber's number's not retired, but you don't see anybody wearing 20. Like Mike Allstott, you don't see anybody wearing 40. The number's not retired. The Bucs, I think, only have 3. I think it's 99, 55, and 63. The rest, like 47 for John Lynch. You don't see anybody wearing 47. Like I just said, talking about Rondé Barber with 20. You don't see it. Mike Allstott with 40. You don't see it. So, like, I think it's going to end up being, either it will be his number is retired or he'll be like one of them. He's in the Ring of Honor and his number is not retired, but we're not giving that number to nobody.
All right, let's talk about uniforms before we wrap it up with the kicking competition.
I have a take.
I'm excited. So I wanted to talk about the creamsicles because those have been brought back into discussion. Since the last time we talked to you guys, the Bucs have officially acknowledged that, yes, they will be bringing back the creamsicles, and it feels good to be right because I told everybody on this here podcast it was going to be the Detroit Lions game, and guess what? Sure was. NFC Central Classic to take place in October in Raymond James Stadium. We will see the creamsicle Bucs, but the $1 million question this week, everybody has these harebrained schemes, all of these conspiracy theories. Are we going to see the orange creamsicle Bucs, or are we going to see the white creamsicle Bucs? And the reason people are going down this rabbit hole is because Levante David had said in a press conference this week that the uniforms are, quote, different than the ones he wore in 2012. Now, that's the last time the Bucs wore their creamsicle. I believe those were Reebok at the time.
No, it was the first year of Nike.
First year of Nike, but it was the last year of the creamsicles, and that was the orange top, white pants, white lid. Now, Levante had said that he got a look at the new creamsicles, and he says they are, quote, different than the ones he wore before. Now, a lot of people seem to be taking that way too literally because, in my opinion, if they just roll out the same creamsicle design, but it says Buccaneers in big bold letters on the front of the chest, that technically counts as different than what Levante David wore before. But a lot of people have taken this even further And now that they are saying that there is a real possibility the Buccaneers could not only bring back the creamsicles, but surprise just about everybody and go ahead and wear either the white on white kit or the white kit with the orange pants. What do you think? My gut says they're going to be wearing the regular creamsicles, and the reason Levante said it's a little bit different is because I think it's going to be a modern-ish take on the creamsicles. I don't think it's going to be anything drastically different than what we're expecting, but I think it's going to follow along the lines of what we have seen on those jersey edits, where it's, a modern-looking creamsicle jersey. It has the modern Buccaneers font on the chest, whether it's in red lettering or black. But I think we're going to see an updated creamsicle, and that's what Levante was referring to. But what do you think? Is it going to be orange? Is it going to be white? Are we in for a surprise here?
Okay, so here's my take. If they roll out a white jersey,
I'm going to be pissed. Personally, I'm going to be mad. Sorry, not to cut you off.
It is going to be the dumbest decision this organization has ever made. Like, I can't fathom it.
I agree.
You've been
What's the point? What is the point?
You've been teasing the return of the creamsicles, and you're not gonna. That's not creamsicle. That's not
for 2 years.
That's not the return of the creamsicle.
For 2 years, we have talked about the potential of the Buccaneers bringing back a throwback uniform. Obviously, the creamsicle, the cream of the crop, pun intended. We got the return of the Eagles' Kelly Greens this year. I think Houston is wearing a special throwback, going back to the Oiler days. That's going to look awesome. Detroit, I think, has another throwback uniform in the mix as well. Like,
the Patriots did theirs.
Yeah, dude. And
the Seahawks are doing theirs. The Seahawks are doing theirs. Like, honestly, I'm not even a huge fan of having Buccaneers. Like, on like, if I know the alarm clock. That'd be funny. That'd be very
plot twist. Catch everybody off guard.
I'm not even a huge fan, and I'll accept it, but like, I'm not a huge fan of having Buccaneers right here.
I agree.
That's not like, I want a pure throwback. I'm hoping what Levante David means. One of the reasons that the Bucs didn't have creamsicles last year was supply chain issues. I was also told creamsicle orange.
Hold on. Hold on. Say that again, because you cut out there. You were told last year that obviously supply shortage, but you had mentioned the creamsicle orange. Say that again.
Yeah, I was told that Nike was having trouble coming up with the right creamsicle orange. So maybe is it a bit like, because the last ones, if you look against the Saints there, that last one, it was a lighter orange. But in some Bucs pictures, like you see, it's a little bit of a darker orange. So maybe is it a little bit darker? Like, and I hope that's what Levante David means. I will accept it if it has Buccaneers here, whatever. By the way, you said red or black font. It has to be red, or else, like, to me, that's just, there's not black on anywhere on the jersey. Like, so it has to be red. And I will be a little annoyed, but like, I'll accept it, whatever. As long as it still has like the stripes here, as long as you don't put like the flag here, or like the ship here, like no, we can't do that. But like,
no modern logos.
Yeah. If it says Buccaneers, whatever. But the one thing I won't accept is, if you want to bring both back and you want to have a road game where you wear those, great. That's awesome. Like, that'd be cool. You cannot tease the return of the creamsicles and then not actually give anyone creamsicles. It is idiotic. It would be malpractice to... Like, it's not a creamsicle game then. Like, stop saying return of the creamsicles if you're going to give me a jersey that's white.
Well,
like,
and people love getting hung up on technicalities, because for those of us, well, I mean, neither me nor Evan were around to witness it, but for the people who have been around long enough, back in 1976, the Bucs didn't wear creamsicle at all. It was white on white kit the entire season. So, maybe they go back to their roots or whatever, because another thing too, that 1976-77 white-on-white kit was different than the white-on-white uniform they had later on. It was the orange numbers with the red outline, as opposed to the red numbers with the orange outline that they adopted later on. So still a little bit of a belief that they could, surprise just about everyone and roll something out just like that, especially with, I think season 45 just came and went for Tampa Bay, if I'm not mistaken. Season 45 just came and went. But I don't know. It would be shocking if they decided to do that. I would be disappointed. I know a lot of people like to bring up the imaginary advantage that they seem to have wearing white at home in October.
Oh my God.
Because it is hot outside, but
It's so dumb,
I
too.
don't think the light orange compared to the white is going to make that much of a difference. But
Bro, when the Panthers are in town, and the Bucs wear white and the Panthers just wear light blue, what's that doing? What is that really doing? Like, come on.
Hey, speaking of the Panthers, though, they revealed their new blue jersey with the black helmet, black lid.
Looks good.
Dude, that's one of the best looks in the league, in my opinion. I mean, it is clean. Yeah. So shout out to the Panthers. Got to show them some uniform love.
Yeah, it looks good. But that's just, please don't screw this up. It's not hard. Like it's not hard. I will say one thing that's notable. The Bucs, when they officially announced that the creamsicles would be coming back this season, the NFL post on Instagram, the edit of the jersey swap of Mike Evans in it. And it was the throwback thing. And it had the Buccaneers thing on there.
That's my expectation.
And the Bucs were invited as a collaborator on it. So they posted it too. So that's something a little bit noteworthy there.
Yeah, that's my expectation for what the uniform is going to be. If you guys have seen any of the jersey swaps floating around, there's one of Vita Vea. There's one of Mike Evans. I think there's a couple of Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask. OCP Designs on Twitter is one of the main people who do a great job at those jersey swaps. But that is my expectation for the creamsicle. An updated version, maybe the orange is a little bit darker than what we saw in the old ones. And I think that big Buccaneers on the chest is going to be the biggest difference. I hope they don't do that. Because again, like you said, I hope it's as historically accurate as they can make it. That Buccaneers font just kind of takes me out of it because it's two different eras. They didn't have that font back in the day, so no need to use it on the uniform. But we shall wait and see. Our buddy Dalton HT Pizzjug said, "Color rush, solid orange, everything." There you go. Really, really throw the people for a loop when they roll out wearing the orange on orange, kind of like the Miami Dolphins color rush from a couple of years ago. But all right, one more thing. We're going to wrap up here. If you want to call in, last chance to call, 305-224-1968. Meeting ID is 895-6929-7818. Let's talk about this kicking competition. And I don't know how seriously you want to take this. I don't know if we want to call it a competition. I don't know if we want to call it an extra camp leg, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have signed the Rod God himself, Rodrigo Blankenship, former University of Georgia great, has reunited with Jake Camarda and is now on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. After trying out at minicamp last week, the Bucs decided to bring him in on a contract. So we have got ourselves a kicking competition. Once training camp starts, it is going to be Chase McLaughlin and Blankenship here in Tampa. What have you got?
Just to answer Richard's question, have the Bucs actually called it creamsicles or just throwbacks? Because it's a good question. If they called it throwbacks, that would lead me to believe, maybe something's up. When they announced it 6 days ago, the post, hey, Tampa Bay, the creamsicles officially returned October 15th against the Detroit Lions. And then they also posted the Classics return to RJ Stadium. Get your creamsicle game tickets with the link in our bio. Come on. You cannot roll out a white uniform when you're saying stuff like that.
I think we're going to get the official reveal sometime in training camp. I think it's going to be around the preseason. I think they want a definitive quarterback one that they can market. I think they want to decide if it's going to be Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask rocking.
I do. I have heard a date. I don't really want to say it here because I can't confirm it. So
we love speculation on the podcast. Come on.
Sooner rather than later. I'll say that.
I like it. I hope that's the case because they've made all these announcements. They got these great promo videos they're rolling out, but they won't show us the damn uniforms, and that's another reason I think they are.
Well, to be fair, like the Eagles technically haven't shown the color greens yet. That was just kind of got leaked from the store. Yeah. So, to be completely fair, it's not like all these other teams are releasing them and the Bucs aren't. But yeah, let's really quick touch on this kicker battle before we head out.
All right, so Rodrigo Blankenship coming into Tampa Bay. I want to say it's an interesting acquisition, obviously, because he is a pretty well-known kicker. But it's even more interesting because when you look at the kicking room now for Tampa Bay, and you look at the kicking room this time a year ago for a team like the Indianapolis Colts, it's the same exact situation. Both McLaughlin and Blankenship.
Kind of crazy.
I know it is kind of funny how things play out like that, but these guys are shaping up for another kicking competition. McLaughlin obviously won the job, I think, in Indy, and then Blankenship finished the year. But Blankenship has been struggling with injury. He hasn't quite been the same kicker he was since that rookie campaign. He's looking to bounce back. And McLaughlin obviously stepping in now for Ryan Suckup, who the Bucs have moved on from, who has yet to sign another contract. So interesting to see how that plays out for Suckup. But I think the biggest question is going to come down to who has the bigger leg. Richard T already beat me to it in the chat. Blankenship has struggled with distance these last couple of years. And again, the injuries do not help. But I do think he is going to be some healthy, legitimate competition. And is it disrespectful to write him off as a camp leg this early?
No.
Because as much as I like him, as much as I'm glad to see him in Tampa Bay, I can't see him as anything else because I just don't see this as something. I don't want to say I don't see this as a battle he can come in and win, but it's a battle they've already had, and it's a battle he lost once before.
Yeah. If you're talking about bigger leg, Chase McLaughlin has a bigger leg. That's just what it is. But the last time the Buccaneers sort of chose a kicker because of his stronger leg, they chose Matt Gay. I believe it was over Pat Murray, I think.
That was Pat Murray's last hurrah, wasn't it?
Yeah, it didn't work out, So, it's tough because you don't want to do that just because of that. And they wanted to be more consistent inside of 40, inside of 50 yards with Suckup. They were that. But I don't think Blankenship's a camp leg. I think it's a real competition. I don't think McLaughlin hasn't been good enough in the NFL to just earn the job outright. Now, Jake Verity, who they waived a few days before they signed Blankenship, that's more of a camp leg. That's like a guy is like, okay, like if he pops and he's like, you're like, oh, this guy, could be legit, then maybe you found a guy. But for the most part, he's like a camp leg. But Blankenship, a guy with NFL experience like that, will it be a true kicker competition like Roberto Aguayo versus Nick Folk was? Probably not. Like I would say McLaughlin probably has the upper hand, but I also don't think it's like a lock that it's McLaughlin's job. So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that McLaughlin is still kind of bouncing around, yet to really find a long-term home in the NFL, which I think does make some fans a little uneasy because I still get messages on the Cannon Fire Instagram to this day about, hey, where's Ryan Suckup? Why did the Bucs move on from Ryan Suckup? Because again, we knew what we had in Ryan Suckup, and that was one of the more accurate kickers in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. But, kind of like what we talked about a couple of months ago when they decided to move on, when you have an offense that isn't a sure thing and can't get you into the red zone each and every time, we saw that cost the Bucs in 2022. We saw more times than not Ryan Suckup roll out there and just not have the firepower to hit that 50-plus yarder, and that's what the Bucs need. You need a youth movement on this team, and even at the kicking position, that's what they're going through. Now, does that make some people uneasy because this team is no stranger to some kicking struggles with younger kickers? Yeah, I totally get it. This could be. Oh God, I don't want to say
Ryan Suckup was comfortable.
This could be one of those years. This could be one of those seasons where I don't know if it's going to be an ongoing issue, but I have a gut feeling that at least at one point this season, we're going to have an uncomfortable
there's going to be some kick where they're like, Ryan Suckup would have made that. There's going to be some kick. Cameron, to answer your question, where can you buy a creamsicle jersey? I'll just look on NFL Shop or the Buccaneers website, their store.
If they're even listed yet, I don't even know if they are.
Yeah, maybe I don't know. I don't know if they are. If you want a true throwback of like a throwback player, I know they have a few of those. I think they might have like James Wilder or something available. But if you want a current player, I think you might have to wait a little bit on that. Or I think you might be able to get it customized. I'm not 100% sure, but
I went to the Bucs team store about 2 weeks ago. They do not offer custom creamsicle just yet, but that may be an option once they are finally in stores. Mitchell and Ness has a collection of creamsicle jerseys. It is Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, Mike Allstott, James Wilder, I think, on that list as well. I think Eric Rhett is also on that list, and if that's the case, I need to snag me one of those. But we have just got to wait and see. Once they officially roll those out, I think is when, you're going to see things go full steam ahead on NFL Shop, Team Store, and all that and the other. But we have just got to wait for them to officially reveal it. But if you need something now, Mitchell and Ness has probably the best creamsicle jerseys on the market. But I do believe when they officially announce the new creamsicles, I think they're going to look a lot different than what those classic Mitchell and Ness ones look like. Even the creamsicle orange, I think, is going to be a different color. But kind of like what you said, Evan, I am excited to see position battles. It's always high drama, high stakes when you talk about training camp battles. It's more content. It's more stuff to talk about. It's more fun stuff to watch play out in real time coming this July. But, I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that I do have kind of a tiny uneasy feeling at the bottom of my stomach here thinking about what could go wrong between these two kickers. But it's going to be interesting. A battle that we've seen once before, a battle that we'll see once again. And Rodrigo already coming into this knocked down a peg because Baker Mayfield still made it clear that, they're not on the best of terms either.
Yeah,
that was pretty good, man.
Georgia beat Oklahoma. I think it was in 2018 or whatever. Baker's last year at Oklahoma, so still not too pleased with that. But we'll see, and it'll be interesting to talk about in camp. Just another training camp storyline.
Yeah, stuff like that. I'll put a bow on it with this. Going back to Baker, stuff like that. I know a lot of people like to make something out of nothing, but a passive comment like that from Baker, and then addressing Kyle Berger at the press conference when, he talks about that interaction with Blankenship. He's like, oh, well, I know you, Kyle, just trying to start shit. And, I know a lot of people might not like to hear that. Maybe it comes off as a little arrogant from a guy who really definitively has not won the job yet, but I like that attitude. I think Baker has carried himself in a way that shows he is confident at the very least, and that's what I like in a quarterback, a guy that's confident and a guy that's going to go out there and play his ass off. So hopefully we can expect that from not only Baker Mayfield, but Kyle Trask as well, and we will keep you guys updated along every step of the way. But between now and July, man, oh man, we are just a couple of short weeks away from training camp, but this is the home stretch, folks.
Yeah,
this is that last little bit of the calendar year without football. I mean, it is just baseball keeping us company right now, and watching the Rays lose to Oakland last week the way that they did was a little discouraging, but it also helps that they are still the best team in baseball. $5 super chat from Mikey. Quick question here. He says, not week one.
Just saying. The Phillies swept the A's today, so just saying.
Hey, he put an end to the hottest team in baseball. Glad to see it.
Yeah.
Mikey with a question here on the $5 super chat. Not week one, but who will be the starting quarterback week 10? Also, who is your prediction for your starting slot cornerback? By week 10, that's a great question. That's tough. I'm going to trust my gut here, and I'm going to say that Baker is marginally better than he was in LA with Dave Canales, and this is a simplified offense that is going to help him out. Obviously, a lot of maybes and a lot of yet to be determined because of first-year play caller and Dave Canales, but I think it'll be Baker Mayfield. I think the Bucs will be a 5-6 win team, and he's going to be playing well enough to probably hang on to that job for most of, if not all of, the regular season. So my guess is Baker. What do you think?
I think it's probably Baker. I think that's the safe one to say. It's impossible because there are a lot can happen between week 10 and now. So we're now week 10, I should say. But I think the safe option's probably Baker Mayfield. If it's Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield started week 1, then things probably by week 10 are not going very well. So
I'll agree there. Who do you think is going to be the slot corner?
That's an interesting one. I think they could try to experiment a little bit there. Like, I don't think Josh Hayes is going to win it. They're playing Antoine Winfield at more of a safety now, like a true safety. I mean, I think they had D. Delaney was in the slot at minicamp, so maybe him. But I think if they're going to sign anybody, I think you can maybe see them sign a slot corner, just to have somebody fill that role. Maybe a couple days into training camp after they get a look at some guys, maybe, because
Zion McCollum
right
still a little too
now,
raw.
I just don't know if he's a great fit for the slot. That's my biggest thing with him. I like him. I just don't know if his best spot is the slot. So, um, like I said, if they're gonna add a veteran who's going to see playing time, like a good bit of playing time, I think it could be at slot corner, because right now that position's sort of bare. But I mean, hey, Zion McCollum could prove me wrong, and he could be pretty well in the slot, and that would be, I think, probably an ideal situation for the Bucs. Like if Zion McCollum was that guy, and he was a good special teamer last year, he just struggled at corner, and I think slot corner at times, depending on the matchup, can be tougher than outside corner. It's a lot harder going over the middle of the field, doing a lot of different things that teams do with slot wide receivers now that outside receivers are sort of limited to. So I'm curious to see what they do with that position. I don't have a firm answer for you right now, and that's another one where I think you're just gonna have to see the training camp battle. Like you're just gonna have to see the battle between 2 or 3 different guys and see who comes out on top.
A lot more heavy lifting, if you will, in that position, which leads me to believe that whoever is in that spot week 1 is going to be a guy with a little more experience than the next one. But with all of that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire Podcast. Thank you to everyone who called in this week. We really do appreciate you. We'll be talking to you again here before you know it as we await Buccaneers training camp just a month away. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL and check out his written work at BucsNation.com. Anything in the hopper this week?
Yeah, I might have something coming out. I don't really want to say because you might see something similar to it on this channel here. So, something that could be coming out here. So keep an eye both on Bucs Nation and also on this YouTube channel right here.
Yeah, new video style here on the channel. Go check it out if you have not. We released a video on some of the biggest what-if scenarios in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. And maybe we got some more stuff like that cooking up right now for you guys.
I can say it's not going to be the next one, but I can say you haven't seen the last of the biggest what ifs. There is going to be another what ifs coming out soon.
Looking forward to it. Last but not least, you can find myself Instagram and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. But that's the show. Thank you again to everyone who hung out with us tonight. Richard T on the West Coast, Mikey with the super chat, Cameron, our buddy HD Piss Jug, shout out to Dalton, Mikey, and anyone else that I may have missed, Bucs Nation, MK, Joshua, Lee Ayers, Dub, and anyone else. Mr. Bucs Nation, of course, how could I forget our boy? Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you in the next one. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off from my co-host, Evan Wanish. We'll see you then. Until then, and as always, thank you for listening. And go Bucs.